Hello and welcome to STATA Training 1. Today we're going to introduce STATA to you and try to achieve 4 objectives. The first objective is introduce what STATA looks like, the layout. And then the second is to load different files into STATA. The third is to estimate summary statistics. And the fourth objective is to do and conduct inference testing. So to get started, let's go ahead and open up STATA. So when you open up STATA, it looks like this. And so just to identify some of the areas that we have here in STATA, the first thing you notice right here is this is our output. So this is going to be like the window that shows all and displays all the results of what we do. Down here is a command prompt. We can type individual commands within STATA to run different commands. Over on the right will tell us the variables of the data set and the properties of these variables. And on the left will give us a history of what these look like. So, and then up here are different helps and things you can do. But let's focus on this one right here, Data Editor Browser. So when we do click on this, in a sense, behind STATA, behind this interface that we work with, is a spreadsheet. That's where the data is going to be. STATA allows us to use this data in a very systematic way. And so to do so, we're going to start with what we call a do file. So that's what this is here. So if I open this up, a do file allows me to type a series of codes and then to click run, and then it'll run those codes for me. And so when we write do files, the first thing we always want to be able to do is to annotate to say what we're doing. So when I use a asterisk, it allows me to write a note, and it's not going to actually run that. So I'm going to call this STATA training, let's not capitalize every letter, 1. And so that's what this is, and I'm going to annotate what we're doing. So I'm going to write objective 1, STATA layout. Okay, and that's where we have achieved that. We've identified the different parts of STATA, and it'll make more sense as we go along. So that is objective 1. Let's now go to objective, I'm really struggling with typing today, sorry, 2, load data sets. And when we look at this, there's going to be 3 types of data sets we're going to load. So the first type of data set we're going to load is a STATA data set, and it's going to have the suffix of .dta. And so we look at this. So as I do this, I'm going to load a data set. Is in the command prompt, if I type help use, help will search the help files and uses the command. It'll then tell me to load a STATA data set, this is the syntax to use. So I type use, I type the file name, and then I can add some options on the end. And so that's what I want to be able to do. So I want to do that same thing. So I'm going to come to my do file, and I'm going to type use, and now I do my file name. So if I come to my folder and come to data set, so here's where I have my files, is in this folder. I can control copy and put it here. Now notice I have spaces in here, so I need to keep this all into quotation marks. But I'm going to identify that folder, and then I can say what data set to use. So the first data set we want to be able to use is right here is going to be wages 2. So I come back to my do file, I type wages2.dta, quotation marks, and then I run this. And now notice it starts as do file. It goes through all the annotations, and then it runs and uses that data set. Notice on the right, it's populated the variables, because now I have variables loaded in this data set. If I click on the data editor, I'll notice it's like a spreadsheet here with all the different variables. Wage, hours, IQ, KWW, education, all these things. I've now loaded that data set, and now that it's loaded, I can then run an analysis on this data set. So let's turn now to the second way. Okay, so that's the first way. Okay, second type is a CSV file, which has a suffix of .csv, a comma-separated value. And so with this, I can come over here, if I type help. So this reads a text, or this. And so in sheet's the command we're going to use. So I come back to my data set. I in-sheet using, now I type that full file name again, so that's the directory, and then I can type in the data set. The CSV one is ACS_major. ACS_major.csv. Now when I run this, notice it says you must start with an empty data set. This is an error code. You get these quite a bit, and the key is to be able to solve them. And that's because there's already a data set loaded. So if I'm going to load a new data set, I need it to say clear the previous one. So I do comma, and the option is clear. So clear the previous data set, and we'll then upload this new one. So look at this new one, and this is what the data set looks like. So I now have done a STATA data set, a CSV data set, and the third type is Excel.xlsx. Okay, and the key here is we're going to do import Excel. And again, I do the file name one more time. And the Excel data set name, let's do MBA stats by year, or we'll do wages, a little shorter. .xlsx, comma, clear. And now with the Excel there's multiple sheets, and it's a slightly different format than a CSV. So I want to type first. This means treat the first row as variable names and not observation outcomes. And then lastly, I can type the sheet of what sheet to use. And so if I were to actually open this data set real quick, what it will show is that there's only one sheet. It's called sheet 1. And if there's only one sheet, I can do the default option, which is don't put sheet. So if I don't do sheet, it'll automatically load whatever the first sheet is in that order. And so if I run this, I need to have a comma clear here. I now brought in this new data set. Okay, right here. But if there's multiple sheets, I need to identify what that multiple sheet is. And so here's where the last thing we're going to do is, in quotation marks, identify the name of that sheet. And for this one, it is simply sheet 1. Now notice there's no space, so I want to make sure it's exactly right. I load that, and we're now good. Here is that data set. So that is step 2, that is loading data sets in Excel. And so we've now achieved the first 2 objectives in STATA Training 1.